Hi everyone, welcome. We are continuing with Psalm 24. We did verses 1 and 2 last time with God's sovereign ownership of all things. We're continuing on with verses 3 and 4. We'll probably do verse 5 as well because that's the kind of crazy YouTube channel this is. So verse 3, Mi ya'aleh behar Adonai, mi yakum bimkom kodsho, neki kapayim uvar levav. Asher lo nasa lashav nafshi, velo nishba lemirma. Go ahead and pause the video, practice pronouncing, and see how much you can translate. Okay, beginning with verse 3, pretty easy, simple verse. Mi means who. Ya'aleh, it's just a 3ms cal imperfect from Allah. You have some unusual vowels here because you have a guttural, but there's nothing really terribly strange going on with that verb. Who can go up, Behar Adonai, on the mountain of the Lord. You have construct phrase, and Adonai is definite, so that makes har definite, even though it doesn't have the definite article. Umi yakum, and who can arise, who can ascend, bimkom kodsho, in his holy place. This is the short O kamatzatuf in a closed syllable. So we get two nicely balanced lines, Allah and Kum, and the mountain of the Lord with the holy place at its top. And if you've had me in class, you've already heard my lecture on why mountains are holy places in the ancient Middle East and how that's still symbolically significant for us. It's interesting, we move from the mountain to the place on top, and then we get an adjective qualifying it, intensifying the phrase. So in verses 1 and 2, we get God's ownership of all things, and then the psalm moves quickly to God's holy dwelling place. You know, if you read the Old Testament, that it's very comfortable moving back and forth between creation as a whole and the temple where God lives. All ancient Semites were comfortable doing this. All of creation was thought of ideally as a sanctuary for the presence of the gods, and the temple was thought to recapitulate and sum up in itself all of creation. You were in the most significant place in the whole world if you were in the temple. So it can feel like an abrupt change from verses 1 to 2 to verse 3, but it isn't really. But of course, verse 3, who can ascend? Obviously, the question is not everyone. Obviously, when you've got the Pentateuch as the foundation and background, if you're an ancient Israelite, you know that you can't just waltz into God's presence. But even ancient Semites, pagan ancient Semites, understood that for whatever other mistakes they made about God and whatever other idolatries were present, however other ways they had of thinking of God in human terms, they had some sense of the holiness of the divine and that you had to bring a gift and a sacrifice. You couldn't just waltz in. You had to be ritually clean and so on. It's one of the ways that we have regressed past, forgive me, I misspoke. We've regressed back behind ancient pagans, and we are more barbaric than they are. It's probably not uncommon in your churches to have people asking you, why do I need a sacrifice to make me clean to come into God's presence? I'm fine, I've done nothing wrong. It's not true, of course, but ancient Semites understood this better than we do. So, who can ascend? The question is not meant to exclude, it's actually meant to get you in. It's not meant to keep anyone out, but you do see the qualifications. God's graciousness in opening up his holy dwelling to anyone who wants to come in doesn't mean a lowering of his standards. First qualification, a nice little phrase here, neki kapayim. Neki is innocent, blameless, and kapayim is a dual noun because you've got two hands. Body parts are often dual in Hebrew. And parallel to this, innocent is bar, means clean, and from hands to heart. So it's action and internal attitude, outside and inside, you've got to be clean. And then the psalm gives us two concrete examples. So the first phrase here is very general, just cleanness as a totality. And then we get two examples. Lo nasa lashav nafshi. Lo nasa, he does not lift up. Then shav just means a vain thing. And with the lamed prefix, he doesn't lift up to a vain thing, indirect object. And then nafshi is technically my soul, but if you check BHS, there's a text critical issue, and the editors helpfully show us that almost all the ancient translations and many other Hebrew manuscripts outside of the Masoretic text have a 3ms suffix here, so his soul. Holam vav instead of a hirek yod. It's a pretty common error in the transmission of the Old Testament. Very certainly it originally read his soul. So he doesn't lift up his soul to a vain thing. It's an interesting phrase. When in the Ten Commandments, when you get the commandment about not taking God's name in vain, it's literally lift up God's name to a vanity, to a vain thing. You get exactly the same phrase. You don't, it's a very concrete way of expressing the direction of your hope, the momentum of your soul, and whether you're lifting up to something that doesn't deserve that level of trust and devotion from you or not. And from internal attitude, a little more externally, the verb here, nishba, shava means to swear, and you swear in the nifal for some reason, even though you translate it actively. So he does not swear. A lamed of manner here, adverbially, and mirma means deceit, so he does not swear falsely. So the thing you set your hopes on, you set your hopes on the right thing. That's the kind of person who can go into God's temple. And the thing that undergirds your speech, you're not trying to trick or twist what you say to benefit yourself and hurt someone else. If you meet those conditions, the result comes in verse 5. Yisa barakah Adonai me'et Adonai. He will receive a blessing from the Lord, sign of the direct object with min. Utzedakah, and righteousness, me Elohai yish'o, from the God of his salvation. What's interesting about, let me change colors here quickly. What's interesting about the transition from verses 4 to 5 is verse 5 doesn't say that person can ascend the holy place. It doesn't say that. It talks more generally about receiving a blessing from God and even righteousness. There's a lot we could say about this. It's not within the power of human beings to secure their own lives, their own destinies, and make their lives blessed. That comes from God. And the way you get that barakah, that success, when things unfold for you in just the right sort of way, is found in verse 4. And not only that, not just barakah, but tzedakah, which I don't think are paired very often in the Old Testament. And it's very interesting, verse 5 does not say the person who fulfills the conditions of verse 4 acts righteously, even though that's true in some sense. It says the person who fulfills the conditions of verse 4 will receive righteousness from on high. Kind of sounds like justification by faith. And parallel to Yahweh, the God of his salvation, the God he's trusting in. So, a lot of interesting things going on. We move from the biggest context possible down to the most intimate, but happily, people are able to enter into God's most holy place, to the beauty of God's radiant divine nature. They're able to see it and participate in it. So things are going very well in this psalm so far. As we see for the rest of the poem, it's going to get even better. The first half of the poem is about getting human beings into the temple. The second half is about God coming to the temple. Thanks, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I hope it's a great Sunday for those of you in pastoral ministry. If you want prayer, leave a comment below. And I'll see everyone next week. Bye for now.